I stood frozen, the world crumbling around me as I watched Derek's lips locked with Amanda's in a passionate embrace. My heart shattered into a million pieces, the betrayal cutting deeper than any knife ever could. Derek, how could you? After all we've been through? I choked out, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and utter devastation. Amanda pulled away from Derek, her red lips curled into a smug grin. Oh, he's mine now, Lily. You're just outdated. Her words stung like venom, each syllable twisting the knife deeper into my soul. I had dedicated my life to this man, sacrificing my dreams and ambitions to support his career and raise our family. And this was how he repaid me, by throwing it all away for a young, vapid thing like Amanda. I should have seen the signs earlier. The late nights at the office, the unexplained expenses, the distant looks he'd give me when he thought I wasn't paying attention. But I had been too blinded by love and loyalty to notice the cracks forming in our once perfect marriage. Get out, Derek spat, his eyes cold and unrecognizable. You're making a scene. I wanted to scream, to cry, to hurl every insult and accusation I could muster at them both. But I found myself paralyzed, my throat constricted by the weight of my shattered hopes and dreams. With what little dignity I had left, I turned and walked away, each step feeling heavier than the last. As I made my way out of the office, I couldn't help but wonder where it had all gone wrong. Just that morning, I had awoken before dawn, as I did every day to prepare Derek's favorite breakfast and ensure his suit was pressed to perfection. It was a routine I had followed for decades, a labor of love that had once brought me joy. But now, as I looked back on the sacrifices I had made, the countless times I had put his needs before my own, I felt a bitter taste of regret lingering on my tongue. How could he do this to me? To us? As I stepped out into the cool morning air, the weight of his betrayal finally hit me full force. Tears streamed down my face, hot and unrelenting, as I made my way to the car. I had always prided myself on being a strong, resilient woman, but in that moment I felt utterly broken. The man I had loved and trusted with every fiber of my being had shattered my heart into a million pieces, and I didn't know if I would ever be able to put it back together again. The office became a battleground, with Amanda asserting her dominance like a lioness staking claim over her territory. Every interaction felt like a thinly veiled attack, her words laced with venom and hidden jabs. "Lily, darling, have you considered retiring?" she would say, her saccharine tone dripping with condescension. "You've worked so hard for so long. Don't you think it's time to let the younger generation take over?" I would force a tight-lipped smile, swallowing the bitter retorts that threatened to spill from my lips. But with each passing day, it became increasingly difficult to maintain my composure. Derek, once my unwavering ally, seemed to be under Amanda's spell. He would nod along with her suggestions, his eyes glazed over as if in a trance. It was as if the man I had loved and built a life with had been replaced by a stranger. "Did you see the new marketing campaign Amanda put together?" He would gush, completely oblivious to the way his words cut me like a knife. "She's a real visionary." I wanted to scream, to shake him, and remind him of the countless nights we had stayed up late, dreaming of building this business together. But the words stuck in my throat, replaced by a bitter taste of betrayal. Nights became a blur of loneliness and heartache. While Derek was out working late with Amanda, I would sit alone in our once happy home, surrounded by the ghosts of memories past. Flashes of our struggling years would haunt me. The countless sacrifices we had made, the dreams we had deferred, all in the hopes of building a better life for ourselves and our family. And now it felt like all of that had been for nothing. "You're being paranoid, Lily," Emma would say, her voice laced with concern. "Derek loves you. He would never do anything to hurt you." But the evidence was mounting, and no amount of reassurance could ease the gnawing doubt that had taken root in my heart. Unexplained expenses, late nights at the office, the way Derek's eyes would linger a little too long on Amanda's form, it all painted a picture that I could no longer ignore. And then the final blow came. It was a lavish office party, one that Derek and Amanda had planned without so much as a word to me. As I stood in the corner, nursing a lukewarm glass of wine, I watched as they moved through the crowd like a perfectly choreographed dance. Amanda's laugh rang out like a bell, her head thrown back in exaggerated mirth, and Derek, my Derek, looked at her with a hunger that I had never seen before. It was in that moment that the last shreds of my denial crumbled away, leaving me raw and exposed to the harsh reality of their betrayal. As the night wore on, I found myself retreating further and further into the shadows, until I could no longer bear the sight of their happiness at my expense. With tears streaming down my face, I slipped out of the party and into the cool night air, my heart shattered into a million pieces. Derek and Amanda's relationship became more brazen, as if they were flaunting their indiscretion for all to see. The once subtle glances and lingering touches gave way to outright public displays of affection that left me reeling. "You two make me sick," I spat one day, unable to hold back the bile rising in my throat. Amanda merely laughed, her perfectly manicured hand resting possessively on Derek's arm. "Oh, Lily, don't be bitter just because you're past your prime." Derek said nothing, his eyes downcast like a scolded child. It was as if he had become Amanda's puppet, dancing to her tune without a shred of remorse. The office became a battleground, with Amanda taking every opportunity to assert her dominance over me. She would casually undermine my decisions, questioning my judgment in front of clients and colleagues alike. "Lily, darling, are you sure that's the best approach?" she would say, her voice dripping with false concern. "Maybe we should let the younger, more innovative minds take the lead on this one." And Derek, the coward, would nod along, his silence cutting deeper than any words ever could. It was during one particularly heated exchange that the final blow came. Amanda had once again overstepped her boundaries, belittling me in front of the entire staff. "Face it, Lily, you're a relic of the past," she sneered. "It's time for you to step aside and let the new generation take over, starting with Derek." That was the final straw. Years of pent-up frustration and anger bubbled to the surface, and before I knew it, I was unleashing a torrent of words that I could never take back. "You think you're so special, Amanda?" I snarled, my voice trembling with rage. "You're nothing but a cheap, home-wrecking tramp who's using her looks to get ahead." The room fell silent, everyone's eyes trained on us like spectators at a gladiator match. Derek's face had drained of color, his mouth hanging open in shock. Amanda, for once, was speechless. Her perfectly sculpted mask of confidence had slipped, revealing the insecure, desperate woman beneath. In that moment, I felt a surge of power coursing through my veins. For too long, I had allowed myself to be diminished, to be made to feel insignificant in my own life. But no more. With a newfound sense of determination, I turned on my heel and stormed out of the office, leaving a trail of stunned silence in my wake. As I drove home, the adrenaline coursing through my veins gave way to a profound sense of clarity. I had spent too long living in Derek's shadow, sacrificing my own dreams and aspirations for the sake of his success. No longer. From that moment on, I vowed to take back control of my life, to reclaim the power that had been stripped away from me piece by piece. Amanda and Derek may have thought they had won, but they had only awoken a force within me that they could never hope to contain. The battle lines had been drawn, and I was ready for war. The extravagant office party was the final nail in the coffin of my shattered marriage. As I stepped into the lavishly decorated ballroom, the weight of Derek and Amanda's betrayal hit me like a ton of bricks. They were the center of attention, basking in the adoration of their colleagues and clients, like royalty holding court. Amanda's sequined dress clung to her body like a second skin, her perfectly coiffed hair and makeup a stark contrast to the haggard, defeated woman staring back at me in the mirror that morning. "Lily, darling, you made it," she exclaimed, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "We were starting to worry you wouldn't grace us with your presence." Derek remained silent, his eyes averting mine as if he couldn't bear to look at me. The coward. "Of course I wouldn't miss this celebration," I replied, forcing a tight smile that felt more like a grimace. As the night wore on, I found myself retreating to the fringes, nursing a lukewarm glass of wine as I watched Derek and Amanda work the room like seasoned performers. They were a well-oiled machine, finishing each other's sentences and basking in the adulation of their adoring fans. It was sickening. At one point, I caught Amanda's eye from across the room. Her perfectly painted lips curled into a smug grin, as if to say, "I won. He's mine now." I wanted to scream, to hurl my glass at her and wipe that smug expression off her face. But I knew that would only give her the satisfaction she craved. So I did the only thing I could. I left. I slipped out of the party unnoticed, my heart heavy with the weight of my shattered dreams. As I made my way to my car, the tears I had been holding back finally spilled forth, hot and unrelenting. It was over. Derek had made his choice, and it wasn't me. The drive to Emma's was a blur, the streetlights blending together in a haze of grief and betrayal. By the time I arrived, I was a shell of a woman, hollowed out and broken. Emma took one look at me and immediately ushered me inside, her arms enveloping me in a warm embrace as I sobbed uncontrollably. "It's over, Em," I choked out between gasps. "Derek, he chose her." Emma's face hardened, her eyes burning with a protective fury I had never seen before. "That bastard," she growled, her grip on me tightening. "I'll kill him." I shook my head, too drained to even entertain the thought of vengeance. "It's not worth it," I whispered, my voice hoarse from crying. I need to get away from all of this." And so, with Emma's unwavering support, I packed what little belongings I had and moved into her spare room. It was a temporary solution, but it was the only thing keeping me afloat in the midst of my personal tsunami. In the days that followed, I became a ghost, a mere shadow of the woman I once was. I stopped returning Derek's calls, stopped going into the office, stopped caring about anything beyond the basic necessities of survival. It was as if I had retreated into a cocoon, shutting out the world and all its cruelties as I licked my wounds and tried to piece myself back together. But as the weeks turned into months, a fire began to ignite within me, a burning desire for retribution, for justice, for the sweet taste of revenge. Amanda and Derek may have thought they had won, but they had only awoken a sleeping giant, and I was determined to make them pay for every ounce of pain and humiliation they had inflicted upon me. The battle had only just begun. The fire that had been ignited within me burned brighter with each passing day, fueled by the sting of Derek and Amanda's betrayal. I knew that I couldn't let them get away with what they had done, not just to me, but to the life we had built together. It was Emma who first suggested seeking revenge. "They can't just treat you like that and get away with it," she fumed one night over glasses of wine that had become our nightly ritual. At first, I dismissed the idea, too consumed by my own pain and heartbreak to even entertain the thought of retaliation. But as the weeks dragged on and the humiliation of my public ousting sank in, a newfound determination took root. It was then that I reached out to Owen, an old high school friend who had always had a knack for storytelling and technology. If anyone could help me expose Amanda and Derek for the snakes they truly were, it was him. "So let me get this straight," Owen said, his brow furrowed as he nursed a beer across from me at our favorite dive bar. "You want to take down your lying, cheating husband and his mistress?" I nodded, my jaw set with grim resolve. "They think they've won, but they have no idea what's coming." A slow grin spread across Owen's face, his eyes twinkling with mischief. "All right, Lily. I'm in. Let's make these assholes pay." From that moment on, Owen became my co-conspirator, my partner in crime. We spent countless hours huddled over his laptop, scouring the internet for any shred of dirt we could find on Amanda's past. And boy, did we hit the jackpot. It turned out that Amanda was a serial homewrecker, leaving a trail of broken homes and shattered lives in her wake. She had a pattern, seducing wealthy, successful men, leeching off of them until they had nothing left, and then moving on to her next victim. "This is gold, Lily," Owen crowed, his fingers flying across the keyboard as he compiled our findings. "We're going to bury that bitch with her own past." With each new revelation, my thirst for vengeance grew stronger. I wanted the world to see Amanda for the manipulative, conniving snake that she truly was. And Derek? He was going to get a front-row seat to the destruction of his precious mistress. We started small, leaking snippets of information to local gossip blogs and forums, watching with glee as the whispers and rumors began to swirl. It was like throwing a match onto a pile of kindling, the flames of scandal licking at Amanda's carefully cultivated image. But it wasn't enough. I wanted more. I wanted to see them burn. So we took it a step further, creating an anonymous website dedicated to exposing Amanda's sordid past. We posted screenshots of her past conquests' social media accounts, detailing the heartbreak and financial ruin she had left in her wake. And then we waited. At first, the reactions were muted, a few raised eyebrows, a few hushed whispers, but then, like a wildfire, the scandal took on a life of its own. Suddenly, Amanda's name was on everyone's lips, her once pristine reputation tarnished beyond repair. I could see the cracks beginning to form in her perfect facade, the strain of the mounting pressure wearing her down. And Derek? Well, he was finally starting to see the true nature of the woman he had risked everything for. As the fallout intensified, I couldn't help but feel a twisted sense of satisfaction. This was just the beginning, a mere taste of the retribution that was to come. Amanda and Derek had made the mistake of underestimating me, of thinking that I would simply roll over and accept their betrayal. But they were about to learn a valuable lesson. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. And I was just getting started. The fallout from our anonymous leaks was swift and merciless. Amanda's carefully curated image began to unravel at the seams, the skeletons in her closet finally coming to light. At first, she tried to brush it off, putting on a brave face and denying the allegations. But as more and more damning evidence surfaced, her defiant facade crumbled like a house of cards. It was during this time that I started receiving frantic calls from Derek, his once confident tone replaced by a desperate pleading. "Lily, you have to help me," he begged, his voice strained. "This whole thing is spiraling out of control. Amanda's past. I had no idea." I couldn't help but revel in his misery, savoring the sweet taste of his comeuppance. "What's the matter, Derek?" I taunted. "Not so enamored with your precious Amanda anymore?" He fell silent, and I could almost hear the shame radiating through the phone. It was a delicious feeling, watching the man who had so callously discarded me squirm under the weight of his own mistakes. But as satisfying as it wasn't enough. I wanted more. I wanted to see Amanda brought to her knees to watch as her world crumbled around her. It was Owen who suggested taking things a step further, arranging a face-to-face confrontation that would force Amanda to confront the consequences of her actions. "Meet me at the old parking garage downtown," he texted me one night, the cryptic message sending a thrill of anticipation coursing through my veins. When I arrived, the dimly lit garage was deserted, save for a lone figure leaning against a sleek sports car. As I drew closer, the figure stepped into the light, and my breath caught in my throat. It was Amanda, her once flawless makeup smeared and her eyes rimmed with red. She looked broken, a far cry from the poised and confident woman who had stolen my husband's heart. "You think you can just tarnish my image and get away with it?" she spat, her voice trembling with barely contained rage. I couldn't help but laugh, the sound echoing off the concrete walls. "Oh, Amanda, this is just the beginning. You're going to lose everything you've schemed for." Her eyes widened, and for a moment I saw a flicker of fear cross her features, but just as quickly it was replaced by a steely resolve. "You have no idea who you're messing with," she hissed, taking a step closer. "I'll destroy you, Lily. You and anyone else who gets in my way." I held my ground, matching her icy glare with one of my own. "Bring it on, sweetheart. I'm not the one with a closet full of skeletons." With that, I turned and walked away, leaving her seething in my wake. It was a small victory, but it was enough to fuel the fire burning within me. From that point on, the gloves were off. Owen and I ramped up our efforts, leaking more and more damning information about Amanda's sordid past. We exposed her financial indiscretions, her web of lies and manipulation, leaving no stone unturned. And as her world crumbled around her, I couldn't help but feel a twisted sense of satisfaction. This was justice, plain and simple, a reckoning for all the pain and humiliation she had inflicted upon me and countless others. But even as Amanda's empire crumbled, there was still one final piece of the puzzle left to fall. Derek himself. He had been my partner, my confidant, my everything. And in the end, he had chosen the path of betrayal, casting me aside like a worn-out relic. Well, no more. It was time for Derek to face the consequences of his actions, to see the true monster he had aligned himself with. And I was going to make sure he had a front-row seat to the destruction. The endgame was in sight, and I was ready to unleash hell. The day of reckoning had finally arrived, and I was ready to unleash hell upon Derek and Amanda. With Owen by my side, we had orchestrated a showdown that would bring their web of lies and deceit crashing down around them. It all came to a head at a pivotal company meeting where the board of directors and key clients had gathered to discuss the future of the business. Little did Derek and Amanda know, but Owen and I had been working behind the scenes, gathering support from those disillusioned by the scandal. As Derek took the stage, his cocky demeanor betrayed no hint of the turmoil brewing beneath the surface. Amanda sat in the front row, her perfectly coiffed hair and designer outfit a carefully crafted mask of confidence. But I knew better. I could see the cracks in her facade, the subtle signs of strain that belied her true state of mind. Derek launched into his usual spiel, waxing poetic about the company's bright future and innovative vision. But this time, his words rang hollow, falling on deaf ears. That's when I made my move. Rising from my seat, I cleared my throat and stepped into the aisle, commanding the room's attention with a single pointed glare. Derek, Amanda, I think it's time we address the elephant in the room, I announced, my voice steady and unwavering. Derek's bravado faltered, his eyes widening as he realized what was happening. Amanda, too, seemed to shrink back in her seat, her perfectly painted lips parting in a silent gasp. For too long, you two have been running this company into the ground with your selfish, unethical behavior, I continued, my gaze sweeping over the sea of stunned faces. But no more. The truth is out, and it's time for you to face the consequences. With a nod to Owen, he sprang into action, queuing up a presentation that laid bare the sordid details of Amanda's past. The affairs, the lies, the financial misdeeds that had left a trail of destruction in her wake. As the damning evidence played out on the screen, the room fell deathly silent, save for the occasional gasp or murmur of disbelief. Derek's face had drained of color, his carefully constructed facade crumbling before my very eyes. Amanda, on the other hand, had risen to her feet, her eyes blazing with fury. "You think you've won, Lily?" she snarled, her voice dripping with venom. "You have no idea what you've just unleashed." And with that, she turned on Derek, unleashing a torrent of accusations and revelations that left him reeling. "You want to know the truth, Derek?" she spat, her words cutting through the stunned silence like a knife. "I'm not the only one with skeletons in the closet." What followed was a brutal evisceration of Derek's character, as Amanda laid bare his own web of infidelities, financial misdeeds, and unethical business practices. It was a scorched earth tactic, a desperate bid to salvage what little shred of credibility she had left. But it was too late. The damage had been done, and the once mighty Derek stood before us, a broken and disgraced shell of a man. As the truth came crashing down around them, the board members and clients began to turn on Derek and Amanda, their voices rising in a chorus of outrage and disgust. It was over. Their reign of deceit and manipulation had finally come to an end, and they had no one to blame but themselves. In the chaos that ensued, I caught Derek's eye, and for a fleeting moment I saw a glimmer of regret, a silent acknowledgement of the devastation he had wrought. But it was too little, too late. The damage had been done, and there was no turning back. As Derek and Amanda were unceremoniously ushered out of the meeting, their once bright futures reduced to ashes, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction wash over me. Justice had been served and the scales had finally been balanced. It was a hard-won victory, but one that tasted oh so sweet. In the aftermath of Derek and Amanda's spectacular downfall, a strange sense of calm washed over me. It was as if a weight had been lifted. A burden I had carried for far too long finally cast aside. As I stepped into the role of leading the company, I felt a newfound sense of purpose and determination. No longer would I be content to exist in the shadows, sacrificing my dreams and ambitions for the sake of others. This was my time to shine, and I was going to seize it with both hands. One of my first orders of business was to implement the eco-friendly community housing project that Derek had always dismissed as a pipe dream. It was an idea that had been simmering in the back of my mind for years, a vision of sustainable living that prioritized the environment and fostered a true sense of community. As I unveiled the plans to the team, I could see the skepticism on their faces, the same doubt that had plagued me for so long. But this time, I refused to let it deter me. "This is the future, people," I declared, my voice ringing with conviction. a chance to leave a lasting legacy, to build something that truly matters. And to my surprise, they rallied behind me, their initial hesitation giving way to a shared enthusiasm for the project. With each passing day, I could feel myself growing stronger, more confident in my abilities and my vision. Gone was the meek, subservient woman who had allowed herself to be pushed aside and belittled. In her place stood a force to be reckoned with, a woman who had stared adversity in the face and come out on top. It was during this time that I found myself leaning heavily on the support of Emma and Owen, my two closest allies in the battle against Derek and Amanda. "I can't believe how much you've grown, Lily," Owen marveled one night over drinks at our favorite haunt. "It's like you've finally come into your own." I couldn't help but smile, feeling a swell of pride at how far I had come. "It's always been within me, Owen," I replied, my voice tinged with a newfound confidence. I just needed to find the strength to let it out. As our eyes met across the table, I felt a spark of something unfamiliar, a connection that went deeper than mere friendship. It was as if, in the crucible of my personal war, a new bond had been forged, one that held the promise of something more. But I pushed those thoughts aside, content to simply bask in the warmth of Owen's unwavering support and the knowledge that I had finally found my footing. With each passing day, the wounds of Derek's betrayal began to heal, the pain and anger giving way to a sense of inner peace and strength that I had never known before. It was as if I had been reborn, emerging from the ashes of my old life like a phoenix, more resilient and determined than ever. And as I looked to the future, I couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement and possibility. The world was my oyster, and I was ready to take it by storm. No longer would I be content to exist in the shadows, sacrificing my dreams and ambitions for the sake of others. This was my time, my chance to leave a lasting legacy and build something truly remarkable. And with Emma and Owen by my side, I knew that anything was possible. The road ahead was sure to be paved with challenges and obstacles, but for the first time in my life, I felt truly prepared to face them head-on. Derek and Amanda may have tried to break me, but in the end, they had only succeeded in forging me into a stronger, more resilient version of myself. And as I stood on the precipice of a new chapter, I couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude for the lessons I had learned along the way. The battle may have been hard-fought, but it was one that I had emerged from victorious. A warrior, a survivor, and a force to be reckoned with. The future was mine for the taking, and I had no intention of letting it slip through my fingers.
Stay-at-home moms have it easy, just lounging around all day. I mean, isn't mom basically just an unemployed person living off dad?
Suddenly, while we were eating dinner, my husband and son started insulting me. It happened just after I had returned to being a full-time homemaker, after years of caring for both my mother-in-law and my own mother. I couldn't believe it. After everything I've done for this family, to be spoken to like that. Fine. I'll live up to their words and spend my days in idleness. My name is Lauren, 42 years old. I live with my husband Mason and our freshman and high school son, Travis. Luckily, we were blessed with a child soon after getting married, and I gave birth to our son. I took maternity leave and returned to work after about a year and a half of childcare. It was around the time our son started elementary school. One day, Mason came home looking somber.
Lauren, I hate to ask, but could you quit your job?
Sorry? I was taken aback, unable to fully grasp this sudden request. Quit my job? Why?
Actually, it's my mom. She's finally reached the point where she needs care.
Your mom? I was aware she had weak legs, but was it that serious?
Yeah. Recently, it's become impossible for her to do anything on her own. So, I was thinking of having her move in with us.
Oh.
Please, Lauren. She doesn't want to go to a facility yet, and you're the only one I can ask.
His father had passed away. and she was living alone. Unable to leave her in that state, I reluctantly quit my job. And so, the grueling care of my mother-in-law began at our home. Her stubborn nature made my first caregiving experience incredibly tough. With a young son and a husband too busy to help, I was on my own. Even a slight lapse in dinner preparation would earn me complaints from Mason.
What's this, Lauren? Is this all for dinner? Please, tell me this is just an appetizer.
Sorry, but I didn't have time for her housework today because your mom was feeling unwell.
Stop making excuses. You're home all day. You could do it.
Well, yes, but...
Just make sure you prepare a more balanced menu, especially for Travis. He's growing.
How unfair. He doesn't help with the chores at all. And I'm the one taking care of his mother. But he never cooperates and just complains. As Mason began to nag me more, Travis also started to speak up.
Hey, Mom, I want steak for dinner today.
Oh, I made stew because you said you wanted it.
Dad says stew is easy to make. You just want to take it easy, huh?
What kind of way is that to speak?
I was just in the mood for steak today.
Once he got like that, his mood wouldn't improve. Years later, my mother-in-law's care became too much, and we had to place her in a facility. Around the same time, my own mother's legs worsened. She had me when she was already old, so she was considerably older than my peers' parents. Thus, I was thrust back into caregiving. From the time my son was born until he started high school, my caregiving duties continued. Between housework and caregiving, my days were completely consumed, leaving no chance for employment. After sending my mother to a facility, I finally found some time for myself, well past the age of 40. I decided to focus solely on managing the household perfectly and to use my free time just for myself. It had been a long time since I had lived such a leisurely life. Then, one day during dinner, Travis suddenly said,
Seriously, Mom? Aren't you just an unemployed person living off Dad?
I was taken aback, unable to understand why he would say such a thing out of the blue. Where did that come from?
But it's true. You don't work and just stay at home all day.
I've had to take care of caregiving duties, and now I'm taking care of the house.
But both of them are in a facility now. You don't need to stay home all day, do you?
Well, no, but... Hearing our exchange, Mason finally joined in.
Come on, Travis. Cut her some slack. It's mean to point out the truth like that.
Hey, you're supposed to be on my side. Don't teach him to say weird things.
Weird things? It's the truth. Stay-at-home moms have it easy, just lounging around all day,
he said, mocking me. I couldn't stand it and protested. Lounging around? I haven't spent a single day just lounging around since our son was born.
See, you get all defensive when faced with the truth. Grow up, will you? Right, Travis?
He said, turning to our son. Laughing, Travis exclaimed,
Mom's crazy.
Fuming, I asked them both, Are you two serious? Do you really think I just lounge around all day? They exchanged glances and grinned, saying,
It's not about what we think, right, Dad? Exactly. I work, Travis goes to school. We're both doing our best every day, while you just laze around at home. It's unfair. I wish I could just not study or do club activities. That'd be awesome. Yeah, if I could be reborn, I'd want to be a woman and a stay-at-home mom. Me too. Me too.
Clenching my fists under the table, I was outraged. Can they really be serious? After all the work I've put in for this family, why do I have to be treated this way? Despite my efforts in caregiving and housework, my family has never recognized my hard work. From that day on, my husband and son began to look down on me as if it were the norm. Just because breakfast was bread 2 days in a row, I was accused of being lazy and failing as a housewife. If there was a little dust in the room, I'd be yelled at for not even being able to pick up trash. If I served fish for dinner, I'd be ordered to make meat instead. I had reached my breaking point. After putting Travis to bed, I finally confronted my husband. Can we please stop this nonsense?
What are you talking about?
He replied, sounding annoyed and barely glancing at me. Don't play dumb. You belittle me every day, and because of you, our son looks down on me too.
Huh? That's my fault? It's because you can't do anything, right? You don't work and can't even manage the household properly.
How can you say that? After all this time, you haven't lifted a finger or helped with housework or caregiving. Aren't you ashamed?
That's your job. I'm out earning money, so don't complain. Just make sure you do everything perfectly tomorrow,
he said dismissively before returning to the bedroom. Despite setting aside time to talk, nothing was resolved. All that remained was my anger towards my husband and son. A few days later, while enduring their usual nitpicking during dinner, my husband and son dropped a bombshell.
Ugh, what is this? It's so bland. Dad, isn't this bad? Let me see.
They each took a bite of the meal I prepared and exaggeratedly grimaced, as if the food was repulsive.
What's this? You have all this time and you still can't cook a decent meal? You agree, right, Dad? This is such a letdown. I was tired today and wanted something good to eat, but this is just lazy. Right. Okay, Travis. How about we go out and eat something today? Yes!
That was the moment. My anger reached its peak. As they cheerfully prepared to leave, I calmly spoke up. I've had enough of this. What's wrong with you guys? Who do you think you are? They were taken aback by my unusually stern voice.
What's wrong, Lauren? Are you mad? Come on, Mom. Don't take it so seriously. It was just a small joke.
So you think you can say anything as long as it's a joke?
Lauren, calm down. Mom, we didn't mean anything by it.
Shut up. Be quiet. I yelled at them, my voice almost a scream. Enough. I'll live exactly as you say, just lounging around. Whatever happens, don't blame me. Just watch. With that, I locked myself in my room, ignoring their shouts from behind the door. From that moment, I decided to abandon all housework. The next morning, as I lay on the couch watching TV, my husband approached me.
Lauren,
What do you want?
Did you have breakfast?
I did.
Oh, okay. And what about breakfast for me and Travis?
I didn't make it. I was too busy lounging around.
But you ate, right? Then make ours too.
Why? Didn't I say I'd be living a life of just lounging around? Just toast some bread or something. He reluctantly started to make toast. Then my son, who had woken up late, asked me,
Mom, what about my lunch?
Lunch? What's that?
Huh? My lunch for school. I have school as usual today.
Oh, really? I didn't notice while I was lounging around.
Hey, what about my lunch?
Without taking my eyes off the TV, I simply said, "Well?" Frustrated, he raised his voice.
What the hell, Mom? Not making lunch is just unacceptable.
"Why?" "I'm just doing what you said, lounging around and not making breakfast or lunch."
Fine. Then give me some money. I'll buy something.
"I don't have an income, sis. I'm just a lounging homemaker. Ask your father."
What?
My husband was nearly in tears, facing a painful expense on his modest salary. Realizing the seriousness, he muttered a rare,
I'm off,
and left the house quietly. That night, my husband and son returned home at the same time. Naturally, I hadn't prepared dinner and was lying on the couch scrolling through my phone. Seeing this, my husband tentatively approached, trying to lighten the mood.
Lauren, by any chance, did you cook anything for
"I didn't make it."
Right. Is there anything you want to eat?
"I've already eaten, so feel free to do as you please."
Oh, okay.
Forced into a smile, he quickly left with my son. I guess they're going out to eat. The next day, I stopped even waking up early, adopting a completely idle lifestyle, waking up just before noon. Eventually, my son reached his limit.
I can't take it anymore. I'm sick of microwave meals and supermarket food. Clothes are all wrinkled when Dad does the laundry. Mom, please, go back to how you were.
Mason, too, reached his breaking point, pleading tearfully.
I agree. Lauren, please. Enough is enough. Go back to your old self. We can't take it anymore. Please be a decent homemaker again.
What? What does decent homemaker even mean?
I mean, I want you to go back to how you were before.
So, you're saying I was a decent homemaker before? Do you remember what you guys said to me? A homemaker just lounges around, an easy life for an unemployed person living off Dad. Remember? They looked at each other, turning pale. As my husband started to say,
It was just a joke,
I cut him off. A joke? Cut the crap already. Do you have any idea how hard I've worked for this family? Complaining without lifting a finger to help with caregiving? I'm not your effing maid. I'm leaving this house if you continue to look down on me. Shocked by my declaration of leaving, my husband and son immediately started apologizing profusely.
I'm sorry, Lauren. I didn't realize how hard it was for you until it got to this point. Mom, I'm sorry too. I had no idea staying at home involved so much work. Both Travis and I have been reflecting on our actions. Please, don't talk about leaving. We'd really be in trouble without you. Please, I want you to make my lunches again. I'll even help out with the chores.
Seeing their desperation, maybe burst into laughter. I never wanted to be mean. I just wanted them to understand that being a homemaker is tough. Helping them up from the floor, I slowly began to speak. I didn't give up on the chores because I wanted help. I was just sad you thought I lounged around doing nothing all the time. I'm sorry for acting so childish.
Lauren, Mom.
Well, if you both have come to understand how hard a homemaker's work is, that's all I could ask for. Prepare yourselves, though, because I'll be expecting your help from now on.
Of course. Leave it to me. I'll do whatever I can do.
Thanks. I'm counting on you both. It seems they really took the lesson to heart, and from that day on, they started to actively help out with the chores. Dinner on weekends became their responsibility. Now I can hear their voices from the kitchen again.
Dad, can I add the potatoes now? Yeah, probably okay. But the salad looks a bit off in color. Dad, you're just bad at plating. Like Mom says, the tomatoes have to go on top. Right, let's add some corn on top too then. Hey Dad, Something smells burnt. Stay calm, Travis. You're the one who needs to calm down, Dad.
Listening to their chaotic conversation brings a smile to my face. It doesn't matter if what they make isn't perfect. It's the thought that counts. I take a bite of the meal they've brought over. Watching me, both my husband and son looked on nervously. I smile warmly at them and say, "This is the best meal I've ever had." They show relieved expressions. "It's really good," I murmur to myself. I hope days like these continue forever. With that wish in my heart today, like every day, I enjoy a joyful meal with my family.
Pretending to be busy day and night. You just want to skip household chores, don't you? No, that's not it. I'm just working for the sake of this life. Be quiet. A wife who doesn't do housework is a failure. My mother-in-law shouts at me as usual, even though I work day and night. She knows that if she raises her voice, I can't retort. Whatever I say, it ends up with her shouting back at me. My mother-in-law doesn't have any consideration for my feelings. Will I continue to live like this for the rest of my life? It's because I work like this that we can't have the current lifestyle. My mind and body are reaching their limit in this suffocating daily life. Seeing me like this, my husband said, "You can stop being my wife now." My name is Abby. I am 36 years old. I met my husband Mike through a friend's introduction. I used to work as an ordinary office worker, but I resigned from my job when we got married. Mike works for a major foreign company and earns a good income. We can live comfortably with his income alone. However, I worked part-time at a local supermarket. One day, after several years of marriage, when Mike returned home from being out, he suddenly said something like this. "Hey, can I tell you something? Even if I might get scolded." Huh? What's going on? You suddenly seem serious. Actually, my university friend Sam has invited me to start a business with him. I've always been interested in doing something like that myself. Starting a business? Oh, now that you mention it. Mike, you've always talked about wanting to start your own company someday, haven't you? Yeah. At first, it will probably be a struggle with just the two of us, and our income might be tight. But I really want to give it a try. Mike spoke about his dream with a serious expression in his eyes. As his wife, I could see how brightly he shone when he honestly faced the challenge he wanted to take on. Of course it's okay. My mouth was already moving before I could even think about it. Is it okay? Really? Of course. If you have a chance to challenge yourself, you should take it. But our life may become difficult for a while, and I think it will burden you, Abby. Don't worry about it. It's just a matter of increasing the shifts at the part-time job. Thank you, Abby. Thank you for accepting my dream. And so, the following month, my husband quit his job and started preparing for the new business with his friend. Our lives will change rapidly from now on. I have to support my husband and be positive about this situation. One day, several months after my husband had started his own business, his mother fell down the stairs and was injured, requiring the use of crutches for a while. My husband explained it to me. Dad passed away 2 years ago, so my mom is living alone at home, right? It seems like it's tough for her to do household chores and take care of herself in this situation. Yeah, that's true. So, my mom said she wants to stay with us until she gets recovered. Does that mean she wants to move into our apartment? Yeah, but even so, it's difficult to decide all of a sudden. I can tell that my husband is concerned about me. And that's because he knows that I don't get along with my mother-in-law. That's why he always checks in with me before taking any action. My mother-in-law's behavior has been terrible since the beginning of our marriage. When we first met, she ignored me and only talked to my husband. I can't believe Mike's partner is just an ordinary girl like this. I was given such a rude remark. At that time, my husband spoke up and defended me. But my mother-in-law's bullying has continued since then. I haven't told my husband, but she still makes snide comments during phone calls. Sometimes, she comes to our house to nitpick. I've thought about talking to my husband about it several times, but he's always tired from work, and I don't want to burden him with my mother-in-law's bad behavior. I should have refused my mother-in-law's offer, but I couldn't bring myself to do it because I didn't want to put my husband in a difficult position. It's okay. My husband was surprised by my answer, as I mustered up the courage to say, Yeah, let's have your mom come over. I'm worried if something happens, But I'll be fine. I have a part-time job during the day, so we won't be spending the whole day together or anything.
Are you sure it's okay?
Of course. It'll be more reassuring for you that way, right?
Oh, thank you, Abby. Ideally, we should hire a professional caretaker, but my business is still unable, so...
Yes. Ever since he started his business, my husband's income hasn't been stable. It's been struggling to take off and have been fluctuating. His pay for the past few months has been around $2,000 at best. Despite this, he's been working hard every day, including overtime and working on weekends to make his startup successful. I don't want to add any more burden to him outside of his work, especially after seeing him like this. If I were to decline my mother-in-law's offer to live with us, I would just be adding another problem to our plate that we don't need. I wanted to avoid that at all costs. In fact, I've started doing work from home besides my part-time job recently. I had to start another job to make ends meet because we didn't have enough money to cover our living expenses. So, we decided to temporarily live with my mother-in-law. Today is the day she is being discharged from the hospital. Since we both have to work, we decided to have her come home alone. As soon as I arrived home from work, the intercom rang. When I opened the front door, my mother-in-law immediately began yelling at me. What? You said you were working, and yet you are at home? No, that's not it. I just got back from work. Work? It's just a part-time job. Stop talking like you're some full-time employee. I'm sorry. Well, never mind that. Hurry up and bring in the luggage. And make me some tea too. Okay. Upon arriving, this is what I was met with. My heart was already worn out. However, I couldn't refuse. I reluctantly gave in to my mother-in-law's demands. 3 months have passed since then, and my mother-in-law can now walk on her own. But she shows no signs of returning to her own home. Moreover, she has become comfortable wandering around the house. She enters my room without knocking while I'm working. Hey, Abby! Why are you playing on a computer when Mike is working overtime? Huh? I'm not playing. This is a job I can do on a computer. It's called telecommuting. You're just saying that. You're probably playing games or something. How can you do something like that when your husband is working late at night? That's a misunderstanding. I really am just working. Don't talk back. As a daughter-in-law, don't make excuses to your mother-in-law. My mother-in-law was shouting at me with a demon-like expression, and her irritational argument was so frustrating. However, I couldn't talk back. If I did, we would both get heated up and probably wouldn't be able to continue this living arrangement. It wouldn't be so bad if it were just me. But my husband is also involved in this life. I couldn't burden my husband, who is already stressed out from work, with any more weight. When my husband came home from work that night, he seemed to have sensed something and looked at my face closely. Abby, did something happen? Huh? Why? You look really tired. That's why. I'm sorry. Is it because of me? No, it's okay. But yeah, I'm a little tired. It's because of my mom, isn't it? No, it's not just your mother. It's just a lot of things that have piled up and made me a little tired. It's about time she goes back home. I'll talk to her about it. So please wait a little bit. Okay, thank you. After waking up the next morning, I found the breakfast had been prepared and the laundry has already been done. Seeing my husband pouring coffee in the kitchen, I realized that he had woken up early and taken care of the household chores. Just then, my mother-in-law saw me in my pajamas and flew into a rage. Hey Abby, what's going on here? You didn't make Mike cook breakfast for you, did you? Well, I just woke up and... Unbelievable! How can you be so lazy? Mike is working so hard for us. Don't you understand that? I'm sorry. My husband interrupts the conversation. Come on, Mom, stop it. Then my mother-in-law pretends to cry. Mike, why would you say something like that? I'm just saying it for your own good. Mom, don't you understand? Abby is working too. She is supporting us right now. Supporting? But she is just working a part-time job, right? But you, honey, started your own business, which is much more impressive. My business isn't doing well, and we're only able to live like this because Abby is working so hard. It's okay, Mike. I'm your mother. I understand everything. Just focus on your work. Mom. My mother-in-law doesn't even listen properly to her son and has an attitude that suggests she's not interested in his defense of me. In fact, she doesn't understand what my husband's current situation is. And every time he tries to explain my work to her, she dismisses it. She never acknowledged me. Despite this, we continued to live with her. Even when my husband tried to send her back to her own home, she refuses to leave. In fact, recently, she started crying and throwing tantrums when we tried to get her to go home. I bet Abby is treating me as a nuisance. I never approved of Mike marrying someone like her. You brainwashed my son. Give me back my son. Previously, she had only bullied me when my husband wasn't around. However, recently, she would scream at me regardless of whether he was present or not. No matter how much I tried to talk back, it only made the situation worse. Although my husband would try to intervene when he was there, she never seemed to reflect on her behavior. On this particular day, I was working in my room while waiting for my husband to return. Suddenly, I heard loud footsteps approaching and my mother-in-law barged in. How long are you going to keep playing around like this? I'm not playing around though. Are you still trying to make excuses? I won't forgive you for today. And so it began again. She continued to hurl heartless words at me, one after the other. You pretend to be busy all day and night, just so you can shirk your household duties. That's not true. I'm just working to support our livelihood. Be quiet. A wife who doesn't do household chores is a failure. But I do both work and household chores. What's wrong with that? It's useless to lie like that. If you find this life so difficult, then leave. In the first place, you are not a woman who is suitable to my daughter-in-law. At that moment, something that had been tightly wound up inside me snapped with a loud noise. Not suitable to be your daughter-in-law? You have no idea that I have gone through all this time. I can't take it anymore. I'll fight back with everything I've got today. With all due respect. As soon as I opened my mouth, a voice came from the hallway. That's enough. My husband appeared, his face filled with anger. Mom, stop it already. How much longer do you plan to tormenting Abby? No, Mike, I'm just doing this for your sake. How is this for my sake? My wife is being harassed by my mother. There is no greater pain than this. Why are you saying such things? How can you defend a failure like her as your wife? Don't make me say it again. I make only $2,000 a month. It's thanks to Abby's work that we can live like this. Mother-in-law shouts in response to those words. That's a lie. As I thought that the situation wouldn't clear up, my husband approached me with a smile and said, Abby, I'm really sorry. You can stop being my wife now. Mike? Let's get a divorce. If you stay with me, you'll be troubled by this person for the rest of your life. What? My husband in front of me is smiling, but he seems somewhat pained. Behind him, the mother-in-law is grinning maliciously. Seeing that, I made up my mind to fight and said to my husband, I'm not getting a divorce. If we get divorced like this, that's what your mother wants. Besides, I love you, Mike. I don't want to break up over something like this. But is that okay? You suffered so much because of my mother. Mike, you have done a lot to try and change the situation. You didn't cause me suffering. It's your mother who did. Abby, thank you. I really love you too. I don't want to be separated from you either. But I don't want to cause you any more pain. I understand, Mike. I know you are kind, so it's okay. When I spoke those words, my husband nodded firmly. Then he turns to face his mother and declares decisively, Mom, I'm done with my half-hearted thoughts. Please, leave this house. Hold on, Mike. I'm sick of it already. Don't interfere with Abby and our happiness anymore. Stop this already. I'm doing this for your sake. I'm telling you it's nuisance. I won't recognize someone who hurts my beloved family as my mother anymore. I'm cutting ties with you from today. What? What is this? It's all your fault, Abby. My mother-in-law pointed at me and glared at me. Even at this point, she was still trying to blame me. I unleashed all of my anger on her for trying to do so. It's my fault? Don't be ridiculous. Do you know how I've been feeling all this time? How it feels to be told I'm not a suitable wife. I've been enduring all of that until today, but it ends here. What's all of a sudden? That's what I want to say. You are always so high and mighty. But who do you think you are? I am never getting a divorce. I'll fight you for the rest of my life if that's what it takes to live with him. I will never let things go your way. Give up and leave this house. How could you say something like that to your mother-in-law? Mike, say something. Mike! Despite how much the mother-in-law complained, my husband simply gave her a cold stare. After a brief silence, my mother-in-law left the house. Later on, my husband and I moved to a different apartment. And of course, didn't give her address to his mother. Rumor has it that she's been spreading rumors about me to our neighbors ever since. But she hasn't received any sympathy, and her position was only worsened. She is now seen as a mother-in-law who bullied her daughter-in-law and is being kept at a distance by those around her. Even if she encounters difficulties in the future, it's unlikely that anyone will reach out to help her. As for my husband and me, his company has recently stabilized, and his salary has increased significantly over the past few months, finally surpassing his previous income as a salaried worker. I've also stopped working from home and returned to part-time work since the increase in our household income. We will undoubtedly face various challenges in the future, but I'm confident that my husband and I can overcome them together. This incident has given me that confidence. We will continue to work together towards our happiness.
Divine punishment will fall upon my mother-in-law and husband, who treat me like a servant.
Why do you always make me so annoyed? I didn't mean to. I have had enough of being talked down by my daughter-in-law, my mother-in-law said with a disdainful look. There was no response to her sudden words, but I remained calm. I'm sick of being tied down to this house. I'll leave as you wish. My mother-in-law still didn't know what would happen to this house when I leave. My name is Beth, 36 years old. I've been married to my husband Alex for 3 years. We have a great relationship, but that was until 2 years ago. On that day, my life changed when I received a phone call from my husband in the middle of a cold winter day. I run an online shop and work from home, so I was at home working when my husband called me. Beth, it's an emergency. My dad. Your dad? What happened? Mom called me and said Dad collapsed. He's been transported by ambulance now. What? Your father was transported? I'm heading to the hospital. Can you come right away too? I took note of the hospital name and hurried to the designated hospital by taxi from the nearest station. But it was already too late. My father-in-law had already passed away when I arrived. I couldn't believe it. My husband and mother-in-law were already in the room, with my mother-in-law crying and covering her husband's body, while my husband gently stroked her shoulder. Then my mother-in-law turned to me. Beth, I need to talk to my son. Can you give us some time alone? Oh, sure. I understand. As instructed by my mother-in-law, I quietly left the room. A few minutes later, my husband came to me, and we went back home for the time being. On the way back, memories of my father-in-law flooded my mind, and tears began to well up. A few days later, We held the wake and funeral and were able to say goodbye to my father-in-law. That night, after the funeral, my husband dropped a bombshell.
Hey, I didn't tell you, but we are moving at the end of this month.
What? Moving? What are you talking about all of a sudden?
Sorry for the sudden news, but it's already decided.
Took out a beer from the fridge and started drinking without explaining anything to me. I couldn't understand it, and my thoughts momentarily stopped. What do you mean by moving? I haven't heard anything about it. At the end of this month? It's too sudden, isn't it? My husband hasn't mentioned anything important yet. I asked him about the thing that worries me the most. Hey, where are we moving to?
Oh, to my parents' house.
Huh? To your parents' house? Why?
It's obvious, isn't it? It's because my mom will be all alone.
Your mom? Does that have to do with the conversation you had in the hospital the other day?
Oh, yeah. Mom asked me to live with her because she feels lonely living alone.
You agreed just because she asked you to?
Yeah, why not?
I couldn't even sigh at my husband's easy acceptance. Even so, I couldn't forgive him for making the decision on his own, so I let out my feelings. Why didn't you consult with me even a bit about it? Moving all of a sudden is troublesome.
Oh, why would you be troubled? You're like a full-time housewife, aren't you?
What are you talking about? You know that I work from home, right?
But that's at home, right? There's no need to commute. And as long as you have internet access, you can work anywhere, right? It doesn't matter where we move.
That's not the point.
Anyway, it's already been decided. Mom is worried, so please start packing for the end of the month.
My husband turned on the TV and deliberately turned up the volume to drown out my voice. Angered by his behavior, I went to bed in silence. From the next day on, my husband began to say this every day.
Make sure to pack everything in time. Put my things in clearly marked boxes. You're usually at home, so you have time, right?
It might be easier than being a working office employee, but recently my work has been busy, and there have been a lot of inquiries due to increased sales. I have to handle everything by myself, so I inevitably run out of time. However, no matter how much I explain, my husband never understands. In the end, I had to sacrifice my sleep time and do both work and packing at the same time. As planned, we moved out at the end of the month, and our life in my in-laws' house began. It was much more difficult than I thought, both physically and mentally. Basically, all the housework was left to me. Even when I suggested dividing the work to my mother-in-law, she wouldn't accept it. Moreover, she joined in with her son and blamed me.
Beth, since you're at home, you should be doing the household chores.
That's right, Beth. You are, after all, a wife of this family. But I have work to do as well.
You're just messing around on your computer, right? You have plenty of free time, so manage your time well.
Oh, is it that Beth takes too much time for one household chore? It's not like that.
Then you should be able to do it. Make sure you don't cause any trouble for Mom.
I will educate her to take care of the house as a wife should. Since that day, my available work hours have drastically decreased. If I don't finish the household chores, my mother-in-law will come to my room without even knocking and complain. And she won't even try to hide her bad mood, as she tells me, "Beth, The laundry isn't finished yet. Huh? But I finished hanging it all just now. It's not finished. The towel that I put in the washer earlier are still in the basket. You put them in after I started the washer, right? I was planning to wash those tomorrow. Don't talk back to me. Just do as I say. My mother-in-law started to yell at me. Until I do as she says, her verbal abuse continues. I reluctantly interrupted my work and started the washer again as she ordered. Days like this continued for a month. Even I, who have a lot of patience, was nearing my limit. One day, I confided in my husband about his mother. While we were lying in the bed before going to sleep, I brought it up casually. Hey, Alex, I have a favor to ask you. A favor? What is it? Could you tell your mom not to come into my room while I'm working? She comes in every day without knocking, and it's really distracting me from my work. Why are you telling me? Why don't you just tell mom directly? I've told her many times, but she doesn't listen to me at all. Then my husband let out a big sigh and responded weirdly. Do you know why my mom goes to your room? What? Because you were doing something wrong. It's because you were not doing your share of the housework. Wait a minute. I'm not neglecting my housework. Mom told me. You forgot to wash the towel the other day, right? And you don't cook the food the way mom told you to do. Why are you so bad at this? My husband, who was supposed to be on my only ally, took his mother's side completely. Faced with this harsh reality, I couldn't say anything more. By consulting my husband, the situation with my mother-in-law became even more difficult the next day. Alex's stress at work also increased, and he was always in bad mood at home. Then, one day, my husband came home from work later than usual. His face was red, and even from the distance, I could smell alcohol. Hey, Alex, how much did you drink? Shut up. I got fired from work, and I'm irritated. You got fired? What happened? Those guys fired me for such a small mistake. Damn it. He said it was just a small mistake. But it couldn't have been such a small mistake to get him fired. However, my husband didn't reflect on himself at all and didn't even acknowledge his own mistakes. I tried to leave the living room, leaving my drinking husband behind. Hey! He stopped me and said, What? From now on, we have to manage our finances with your income until I find my new job. What? Wait a minute. I've been contributing $1,500 until now. Starting next month, it'll be $3,000. I saw your online banking. You earn more than that, right? Did you check it without my permission? We're a married couple. It's not a problem, right? Anyway, make sure to put $3,000 in the household budget. If you don't like it, we'll get a divorce. He took out the divorce papers from his bag and threw them at me. Looking back, I should have decided to get divorced right away. At the time, I was just bewildered by the fact that my husband had been fired. In addition, at his command, I had to keep the news of his dismissal from his mother. To avoid suspicion from her, he pretended to wear a suit and went to work every morning. How long will this life continue? I can't even save any money like this. I had always wanted to start my own business and even wanted to have a physical store. So, I had been saving my money, though it was not much. I hoped my husband would find a new job soon. I managed to endure this life somehow. But more than a half a year has passed since then, and he still hasn't found a new job. He started working part-time a few months ago, but it doesn't support our household budget. Despite this situation, my mother-in-law still hurls insults at me. Due to the stress of my husband being fired, I ended up arguing with her one day. If you have so many complaints, why don't you do everything yourself? What? Beth, why are you acting that way toward your mother-in-law? I am busy with work too. I do the good amount of housework. I can't handle any more than that. Without thinking, I shouted and then snapped out of it. But it seemed I had stepped on a landmine already. My mother-in-law was livid. Why do you always make me so angry? I didn't mean to. I've had enough of being bossed around by my daughter-in-law. Just disappear. That's when my anger turned into resignation. It's pointless to deal with them anymore. I realized it in an instant. I understand. After saying that, I began packing my things. My mother-in-law watched me satisfied the whole time. Since a nearby business hotel was available, I stayed there for a few days and submitted a divorce application with the court. That's how I was finally freed from the curse of those two. After staying at the hotel, I rented an apartment near the land where I want to eventually open a store. It was about 3 weeks after leaving my in-laws' home, when one day, my ex-husband Alex called me out of frustration. He immediately started yelling at me. Enough already! You're such a burden! How long do you think you can keep wandering around like this? What's the matter all of a sudden? Where are you now? It's none of your business. I don't have to tell you where I am. What? Don't mess with me. Even if you are useless, you are still my wife. So hurry up and come back instead of fooling around. It seemed like he didn't realize that I had already filed for divorce. I tried desperately to hold back the laughter welling up inside me and calmly replied, Excuse me? I'm already divorced. So I'm single, you know? Huh? What are you talking about? If you don't believe me, go to the government office to confirm it. My divorce application was properly accepted. Come on, you're joking, right? Then we heard my mother-in-law's voice as she listened in on our conversation. Beth, come back soon. If you do, I'll forgive you now. What? Forgive me, you say? Yes, I'll forgive everything. Even when you left on your own and made impolite remarks. So just come back quickly. What are you talking about? I have no regrets. In fact, I feel relieved that I finally got away from the bullying mother-in-law and jobless husband. Jobless husband? Are you talking about Alex? He goes to work every day. No, he has not. He was hiding the fact that he got fired from you. You were the only one who didn't know about that. After he became unemployed, I supported your family for more than a half a year. Then, please come back now. Aren't you worried about me? What? I already told you that I don't want to have anything to do with you scumbags. Beth, please, calm down and let's talk things out. There's nothing left to talk about. Even if we talked, nothing would be resolved. I am tired of being manipulated by you too. I regret not doing this sooner, you know. Well then, goodbye. Wait, Beth, please, help me. Without listening to the end, I threw my smartphone onto the bed and did a fist pump. Yes, it was finally all over. Now I can move forward without any regrets. As expected, they apparently met a terrible end later on. My mother-in-law blamed Alex for being fired, and Alex blamed my mother-in-law for giving him the reason to kick me out. A fight between the two of them began. In the end, Alex left home and found a job at a low-paying factory where he could live in. My mother-in-law was forced to live a lonely life on her pension, and their lives completely changed. As for me, I'm preparing to open a physical store for my handmade shop. When things settle down, I will go see my parents at home. Don't worry, I'm definitely happy now. I won't take this happiness for granted and will focus on the present moment. That's what I decided in my heart.
After being treated like a maid in my in-laws' house for a long time, tragedy struck my in-laws' family when I left home.
What did I get married for? On a day 2 years ago, I was certainly happy. I thought I would spend the rest of my life with the person I loved, taking vows of love. And yet now, I just work as a housekeeper in my in-laws' house. How did this happen? I just wanted a simple married life. But now I want to leave this house. I've thought that many times. But when it comes down to it, I freeze up and can't take that last step. Is this going to be my life forever? Just when I was starting to give up, a glimmer of hope saved me. My name is Brandy. I am 33 years old. I got married to my husband Hank 2 years ago, and we originally worked at the same company. We dated for 3 years before getting married. I quit my job and became a housewife when we registered our marriage. Things were good up until we entered our newlywed life, when my father-in-law suddenly passed away. Up until then, my father-in-law, mother-in-law, and sister-in-law all lived together. It seems that my father-in-law was the breadwinner of the family. At the time, my mother-in-law was a housewife and my sister-in-law was a university student. The inheritance that my father-in-law left behind was not a significant amount, and it was consumed by my sister-in-law's tuition fee. In the midst of all that, my mother-in-law contacted my husband. "Hank, please come back to our house. Please help us." "Huh?" At first, my husband refused to help. "Even if you ask for help, I have a life with Brandy too." "Of course I understand that. I won't make you and Brandy feel uncomfortable. So please come back to our house." "No, but please, Hank. There is no one else we can rely on." Over the phone, my mother-in-law begged and cried. I, who was listening to the conversation next to him, felt a mix of emotions. It seems that my mother-in-law has been a housewife for her whole married life. Even if she says she wants to start working now, it's not easy to find a job immediately. So my husband proposed to give her money, but she refused. "Money? You don't have to do that. Just come back to our house. Then you won't have to pay rent either, right?" "That's true, but we just got married." "It's okay. Brandy and I get along well. I won't make things difficult for Brandy." "Well, I don't know." "Please, ask Brandy herself about this. She will surely understand my request." I think my mother-in-law knew from the beginning that I wouldn't be able to refuse her. Yes, there was no way I, who had just gotten married, could muster the courage to reject her proposal to live together. My husband gave me a week's grace period, and I thought about it over and over again in my own way. But no matter how much I thought about it, I couldn't come to the conclusion of refusing to live together. Of course, I wanted to enjoy my newlywed life with my husband. But if I were to reject my mother-in-law's proposal here and now, it was clear that our relationship with my husband's family would deteriorate in the future. We must get along well with his family from now. Therefore, I couldn't afford to be disliked by my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. After much consideration, I decided to live together. My husband worried about me until the end, but I insisted that everything would be okay, and we moved to my in-laws' house. On the day of the move, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law welcomed me with open arms. Welcome, Brandy.
Good to see you. I'm excited to have you here.
Thank you, both of you. If we live with my in-laws, we won't have to pay rent, so my husband's take-home pay should be enough to support everybody. My mother-in-law said she will look for work, and if things are still tough, I can go back to work. That's what I thought. But at that time, I still hadn't realized the real reason why my mother-in-law had proposed that we live together. I didn't figure it out until 2 weeks after we moved in. My husband was still as busy as ever with work, and not returning until after 9 at night. That had become his daily routine. I woke up at 5:30 every morning to see him off and make breakfast for everyone. On that day, as I was having breakfast alone after seeing off my husband, I heard a loud voice calling me. When I looked in the direction of the voice, my mother-in-law had just entered the room.
Oh, good morning.
Without waiting for me to greet her, she interrupted me and raised her voice in anger. Wait a minute. Just what do you think you were doing?
I just finished seeing off Hank and was about to have breakfast.
I can't believe it. You going to eat before me or Lucy?
Huh? But I have to go to the city hall after this.
I don't care about that. How dare you be so rude as to eat before the people of this household?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
As my mother-in-law starts to get angry, my head becomes muddled. I don't understand why she's so upset. Perhaps hearing her voice, my sister-in-law Lucy comes down from the second floor. Realizing that I am being scolded by my mother-in-law, she laughs at me. Oh no, Brandy got Mom pissed.
But it's really your fault, Brandy.
Because you are not very good at handling things.
What?
What did I do was so wrong?
I've been living with you for the past 2 weeks, and I've realized that you are the type of person who makes us irritated.
What? I wonder why I have to be told such things. From that day on, my life became a living hell. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law teamed up to mock and criticize me. Brandy, make sure you clean and do all the laundry.
Mom and I are going out, so make sure you work properly, Mrs. Housekeeper. Okay?
Housekeeper? I'm not living here just to do housework. Huh? Then why are you here for?
So shameless. No wonder my brother had such poor taste.
Wait, please, at least do your own laundry. You are so annoying. We're letting you live in this house. Don't complain.
That's right. If you dare to go against us, we will tell my brother to divorce you.
But that's... They no longer consider me as part of their family. I managed to endure it for the first few months, but I can't take it anymore. One day, when my husband came from work, I opened up to him about my feelings. Hey, Hank. Sorry to bother you, even though you're tired. Can I talk to you for a sec? Sure. What's up? Well, it's about your mom and sister. They've been pushing all their household chores onto me, and it's been quite tough. I see. They've been making you do all the housework? I nodded slightly to my husband's question, but I couldn't tell him everything that had been happening to me, as I had only been able to convey the bare minimum of the harassment I had received from them. You know, even though I'm your wife, I'm still an outsider, right? So I was hoping you could indirectly let them know that it's becoming too much for me to handle. I understand. I'm sorry. I had no idea things had gotten this bad. It's okay. Also, is it okay if I get a part-time job during the day, too? Why the sudden change? Well, I don't know. I just feel like I want to get out of the house a bit during the day. If that's what you want, go for it. Thank you, hon. I had been vague with my husband, but the reality was different. The more I stayed in this house, the more trouble my mother-in-law and sister-in-law piled on me. I started to feel like I didn't want to be at home as much as possible. So I quickly found a job and started working at a bakery from the following month. While my time at home had certainly decreased, but bullying from my in-laws had not stopped. In fact, it might have gotten worse with my increased absence. In addition, my husband's admonishment only made his mother and sister angrier. This lifestyle had entered its second year, and their treatment of me was getting worse day by day. My mother-in-law had said she was looking for a job, but she made excuses saying that she had failed her interview. However, she had not even gone to the interview in the first place. My sister-in-law had graduated from college, but she was only working part-time to earn her own pocket money. My husband had warned them several times, but each time they would apologize and promise to find jobs. But it never materialized. I had enough of this kind of life. If you say that much, then you should leave, one might think. But I couldn't. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law would change their attitude in front of my husband, and I couldn't obtain my clear evidence of their bullying. Then one day, while I was doing my usual housework, I heard my mother-in-law and sister-in-law arguing. It seemed they had made plans to go out, but both claimed they had no money. I thought it was stupid. But my mother-in-law called out to me, "Hey, you! Worthless daughter-in-law. Come here. We're going out now, but we don't have any money. Can you lend us some?" I'm sorry, but it's tough for me too, before payday. What? Why are you refusing? You don't have the right to refuse, you know. Even if you say that, just give me the money already. My mother-in-law grabbed me and took my wallet out of the pocket of my apron. I had been carrying my wallet in my apron since she had taken it out of my bag without permission before. Hey, please, stop it! When I reached out to take back my wallet, my mother-in-law slapped my hand away. Then, looking at the contents of my wallet, my mother-in-law opened her mouth in disbelief. What is this? There's hardly anything in here. Look at this. There's only $30 in the wallet.
What? Seriously? You work, and yet there's only this much in your wallet? That's really bad.
You're really useless. It's frustrating just watching you. And now you can't even contribute anything.
Yeah, seriously. You were terrible at housework too. You're just a worthless bitch.
The laughter of the two echoed in the room, and my self-esteem continued to plummet. Then my mother-in-law made an unexpected comment. If she's just going to make us irritated like this, why don't we just ask her to leave?
That's a good idea. She's a nuisance anyway.
If you think that getting rid of this bitch will make our life easier.
You're genius, Mom. And since her living expenses are now saved, we can use the extra money ourselves.
It seems that they think of me as nothing more than a servant and a source of money. I had had enough of their attitude and behavior. If you're going to have that kind of attitude, then I won't hesitate to take action against you. I regained my composure and clearly told them what I thought. Oh yeah? Is it really okay that I leave? Of course. Please leave as soon as possible.
Yeah, your presence is just a nuisance. But only if you have somewhere to go, though.
I see. Thank you very much. Goodbye then. I quickly headed to my room and packed my things. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law seemed a bit puzzled by my swift action, but I ignored them and left the house. I went to a hotel near my husband's office. I contacted him and waited for him to finish work. Several hours later, my husband finished work and we met up. But he seemed understandably bewildered. Brandy, hey, why are you here? I finally confessed everything to my husband when he asked me about it. Honey, I'm sorry for not telling you this before, but actually, I'd been bullied by your mother all this time. What? You mean my mom? Not only your mom, Lucy does it too. At first, it was just pushing me to do more housework. But recently, the verbal abuse has increased. And they've even started demanding money. That can't be true. No matter how much my husband loves me, he is still blood related to his family, including his mother and sister. It's understandable that he can't believe what I said without any evidence. It's difficult to ask him to believe me. So I took out the divorce papers that I had prepared in advance and showed them to him. He looked like he was about to cry and tore up the divorce papers. Hank, why? I'm sorry, Brandy. I didn't notice that you were suffering so much. Why are you apologizing, Hank? Brandy, I know you are not the kind of person who would tell lies like that. But I have no proof. I understand you better than anyone else. When he told me that, tears flowed from my eyes. My husband gently embraced me as I cried like a child. He believed me, his wife, instead of his mother and sister. That alone was enough to make me feel relieved. The next day, my husband and I returned to my in-laws' house. When my mother-in-law saw my face, she furrowed her brow, but quickly put on a facade in front of my husband. Brandy, where did you go? I was worried about you. The mother-in-law told a blatant lie. Hank went straight to his room and began packing his luggage. Then he said to his mother and sister, Brandy and I are leaving this house. You can do whatever you want. What are you saying, Hank?
That's right, Hank. What happened all of a sudden?
How can you be so calm about it? Brandy was hurt so badly because of you guys. What are you talking about? We didn't do anything. Right, dear?
Yeah. Hank, you're not seriously believing what that woman says, are you? We didn't do anything.
My sister-in-law even covered her face with both hands and pretended to cry. But such actions had no effect on Hank. He raised his voice and said to the two of them, "Don't be ridiculous. Cut it out already. Do you even understand how Brandy felt all this time? Of course, I'm also at fault for not noticing it until now. But the biggest responsibility lies with you guys. I've turned a blind eye to the fact that you didn't work until now. But I've had enough. We're leaving." "Wait, Hank! What will happen to us if you leave now?"
Yeah, wait. What about our lives?
"How should I know? You guys have been making us work, while you just did whatever you wanted. On top of that, you've been bullying my wife? How rotten can you be? Aren't you ashamed? In front of our dead father? Let me tell you, I don't consider you guys as my family anymore. From now on, Brandy and I will live happily together. Don't you dare interfere. Got it?" My husband gently smiled and took my hand, and we started to leave the living room. Then the mother-in-law shouted, "Wait!" My mother-in-law and sister-in-law looked at me with tears in their eyes. They must be hoping to get my forgiveness here, so that they can get my husband's forgiveness as well. "Brandy, I'm so sorry." Staring at the mother-in-law as she says this, I firmly respond, "That's enough of that kind of talk. There's nothing you can say now that will make me forgive you." "Please don't say that. We won't do anything anymore." "I can't believe that. For the past 2 years, I've been living a life like hell. Now that I'm finally free, you want me to fall back into that hell again? I won't waste any more of my life on a loser like you." I turned my back on them and started walking. My husband walked with me, matching his stride to mine, and I felt like crying. After that, the two were forced to live a difficult life. Even though they owned the house and didn't have to pay rent, they still had to pay for utilities, food, property tax, and so on. There was no way they could cover those expenses with just my sister-in-law's part-time job. So my mother-in-law ended up starting a part-time job as well. However, since she had no work experience, she could only find jobs with low wages and meager allowances. As a result, they were no longer able to enjoy the luxurious they used to have, and they became quite worn out. My husband still receives regular requests for them for help from those two, but he ignores all of their messages without pampering them in the slightest. I wonder if they will ever come to understand their own situation someday. Well, it's no longer my concern. On the other hand, we are currently in the midst of looking for a new house. We are searching for a good place that is halfway between my husband's company and my part-time job. I am grateful to my husband, who believed in my words at that time. I want to spend my life with him forever.
Inviting my mother-in-law, who looks down on me for being a high school dropout, to my sister's wedding resulted in her experiencing a living hell.
My sister asked me to invite my mother-in-law to her wedding, but she refused with unkind words.
"What? You want me to attend your sister's wedding? I'm definitely not interested." "Well, I wanted to make my sister happy. Do you really think it's worth my time to attend your sister's wedding?" My mother-in-law smirked and calmly started her refusal. I knew she didn't like me, but I never thought it would affect my sister's wedding. However, she still hasn't realized that things are already in motion behind the scenes. My name is Daisy, and I am 36 years old. I lost my father when I was young, and had to start working right after graduating from junior high school to support my sickly mother and sister. Every day was a struggle, but I felt relieved when my mother passed away 5 years ago. My sister became independent, so I didn't need to work so hard anymore. I'm currently a housewife, having married my husband Nathan, who was a regular customer at the cafe where I used to work. I resigned from the cafe after we got married, and it was all thanks to Nathan. When he proposed to me, he looked apologetic and told me the reason why. "I have a request for you. Daisy, if you don't mind, would you become a housewife after we get married?"
Huh? Me? A housewife?
"Well, I can't do any housework, right? So I think I'll leave all the housework for you. In return, I want to work hard and support us financially."
But that would put a lot of burden on you, Nathan.
I love my job, so it's okay. Besides, I always hated that my mom worked outside all the time. His mother is a famous cooking researcher named Karen Walker, who is almost 70 years old, but still works vigorously. She is invited as a guest on daytime cooking shows, and her recipes are also published in magazines. She is more than just a hobbyist cooking instructor. I have tasted her cooking a few times, and it is not an exaggeration to say that it is very delicious. My mother and sister even purchased her cookbook. When we decided to get married, my friends envied me for having Karen Walker as my family. By the way, my husband's parents divorced when he was young, and his mother, who was raising Nathan alone, worked hard every day as a cooking researcher. However, it sometimes caused difficulties for her young son. She received attention from the public due to her fame, and at that time, she was subjected to hurtful words. Due to her busy schedule, my husband was not able to express his painful feelings to anyone and had kept them bottled up. As a result, my husband and his mother had a strained relationship for a while. At that time, he even hated his mother a little bit. He said so with a slightly sad expression. Perhaps because of his past experiences, he wants me to be a housewife, so that our future children won't feel lonely. I decided to support him as a housewife while understanding his feelings. I also wanted to maintain a good relationship with my mother-in-law while keeping a certain distance. However, I soon realized the harsh reality that Karen Walker as a mother-in-law was a more terrifying person than I had imagined, which became apparent a few months after we got married. My mom says to come and visit. One day, my husband said to me out of blue, and we visited her. I felt a bit nervous as we arrived at my in-laws' house. I have never had a proper conversation with my mother-in-law before, as she has always been busy with work. Even during a marriage proposal, she had to take a work call, and we didn't get to talk much. I have visited their house a few times for family gatherings, but it seemed like every time I went, my mother-in-law had some urgent work to attend to. Nevertheless, I have tasted her cooking before, as she always sent some dishes for my husband to take home after work. As a gesture of gratitude, I brought along some small gifts as we headed to their house. As soon as we arrived, my mother-in-law greeted us with a smile at the entrance.
"Whoa, it's been a while. Are you doing well, Nathan?"
"Yeah, I'm doing fine. How about you, Mom? You look great as always."
"Of course. If I'm not healthy, I can't continue working."
"You never change. But don't work too hard, and make sure you take care of yourself."
"Don't worry, I'll be fine. I've always been physically strong."
I couldn't really join in on the conversation between my husband and his mother, so my mother-in-law took notice and turned her gaze towards me. then slowly started talking to me. It's been a while since we last met, Daisy. Have you been well? Yes, thank you. Sorry for not keeping in touch. Oh, that's okay. I'm usually quite busy myself. Your cooking is always delicious, Karen. I really enjoy it. Here, this is for you. I hope you like it. Oh, chocolate. Looks nice. Come on in. I've made dinner. Upon receiving the souvenir, my mother-in-law smiled and urged my husband and me to come in. It was the first time we had met in a while, but her friendly personality made me feel a little more at ease. As soon as we were led into the living room, my mother-in-law suddenly exclaimed in a loud voice, "What, Mom?" When my husband asked her back, she said apologetically, "I'm sorry, Nathan. I seems to have ran out of milk." Milk? Are you using it for something? I'm using it for dessert. I'm sorry to ask, but could you go buy some? Okay, I got it. I'll go to the supermarket. Thank you. Then, my mother-in-law let out a sigh and glared at me, creating an awkward atmosphere as my husband left the house. I never thought someone like you would actually marry Nathan, you know? Huh? What do you mean? I mean, Nathan marrying an uneducated high school dropout like you. I never thought it would happen. Wait, are you talking about me? Who else could I be talking about? I thought if I didn't interfere, you would break up eventually. But I guess I was wrong. So, you were against me marrying Nathan? My trembling voice asked if that was the case, and I was fearful. Mocking me, my mother-in-law showed a smile, calmly saying yes. The world in front of me turned dark with that one word. It was at that moment I realized that my mother-in-law hated me. She continued to berate me mercilessly, with a sneer on her face, while I was left speechless. Listen, Daisy, did you really think that I would ever accept someone like you? Bottom feeders like you, who only have a middle school education? Wait a minute. I only dropped out to work and support my mother and sister. Do you think that's enough to make me shed tears? You are nothing but a parasite who's dependent on Nathan now. How dare you speak with such arrogance? That's not what I meant. Anyway, you should break up with Nathan as soon as possible. Huh? Don't say anything unnecessary to Nathan. Just tell him you want a divorce. Wait, hold on a minute. There was a sound of the front door opening, and then I heard my husband's voice saying, "I'm home." My mother-in-law quickly headed to the entrance to greet him. My head was still filled with the hurtful words my mother-in-law had just thrown at me. I had no idea she thought so poorly of me. To her, I was nothing more than a nuisance. It wasn't just the fact that she had insulted me by calling me a high school dropout. What hurt me the most was being called a parasite who depended on my husband for everything. He asked if something had happened, but I didn't feel like I could tell him the truth. After that day, my mother-in-law started to harass me. Every time we were invited to my in-laws' house, she would find ways to leave us alone and would say hurtful things to me. I even received snarky messages on my phone. 3 years had passed since we got married, but the situation didn't change. Still, I didn't want to ruin my relationship with my husband, so I endured the harassment silently. One day, my sister Hazel called me. She sounded she was happy to talk to me.
Hey Daisy, it's me. Good to hear your voice.
Hello, Hazel. What's up?
Actually, Can I talk to you about something related to the upcoming wedding?
Oh, it's coming up soon, isn't it? What about the wedding?
Well, I was wondering if it's possible to invite Miss Walker.
Wait, you want me to invite Karen? My mother-in-law?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Miss Walker. So I was hoping she could come to the wedding.
Hearing Hazel's happy voice makes my heart ache. If possible, I don't want to have anything to do with her. However, I can't tell my happy sister that. I inform her that I understand and make up my mind to call my mother-in-law. She answered the phone with a cold voice. What is it, Daisy? I have a little request, actually. Huh? Why should I listen to your request? It's not for me, but rather it's a request from my sister. Your sister? Yes. My sister Hazel is a big fan of yours, and she really wants you to come to the wedding. There's a silence on the other end of the phone. And as the silence drags on, my heart starts to beat loudly. As expected, my mother-in-law responds with cruel words. Huh? Me? At your sister's wedding? What kind of joke is that? No, it's not a joke. So, you were serious about it? You're asking me, someone like me, to attend your family's wedding? Obviously, I don't want to. But my sister is a really big fan of you, and do you really think it's worth my precious time to attend the wedding of a high school dropout's little sister? My mother-in-law spoke as if my lack of education was the reason she couldn't participate. I couldn't find the words to respond, and she just chuckled at me. Don't underestimate me. I'm a popular cooking researcher, Karen Walker. It's already embarrassing enough that my son's wife only has a middle school education. Why should I bother going to your sister's wedding? Please, I just want to make my sister happy. No, I don't care what happens to you and your sister. I don't have time to be nice to poor, uneducated people like you. At the moment, an anger that I had never felt before surged through my body. It was the moment I swore a revenge against my mother-in-law. I couldn't forgive her for belittling my sister just because she didn't like me. I absolutely couldn't forgive her. If that's how it was going to be, I was going to corner her completely. I immediately began taking action to get revenge on my mother-in-law. I went to the in-laws' house alone, turned on the recording function on my smartphone, and rang the intercom. My mother-in-law made no attempts to hide the fact that she was displeased. What are you doing barging into my house like this? Please, I'm begging you. It's about that earlier conversation, isn't it? No, it's a waste of time. Don't make me repeat myself. Please, I'm begging you. I want to make my sister happy. I don't care. Why should I waste my valuable time for people like you? People like us? It is frustrating, but there is no point in arguing back at this moment. I took a deep breath and lowered my head to my mother-in-law once again, trying to keep calm. Please, I'm begging you. I want you to attend my sister's wedding to make her happy. You're so persistent. I won't do it, no matter how much you ask. I won't lower my pride to fulfill the request of a daughter-in-law who's only graduated from junior high. Please, can't you find a way to make it happen? At that moment, my mother-in-law suddenly grabbed my bangs to pull them up, bringing her face close to mine and slowly speaking. Do you understand your position? You are a poor, uneducated woman who didn't even finish middle school. Asking me for a favor is out of the question. I don't want to associate with a lower-class family like yours.
You don't have to say like that.
Oh well, I guess your parents are already gone, aren't they? How pitiful. It was then that I had no regrets in front of my mother-in-law, who looked down on me. When I glared at her, she trembled for a moment. What's with that look in your eyes? I calmly told her as she raised her voice. I understand. The matter regarding my sister's wedding is fine now. What? You backed down easily. Then you should have listened to me from the beginning. Seeing her actions, I took out my smartphone and sent the recorded audio file to my husband. Seeing me do this, my mother-in-law trembled and asked me, Daisy, what are you doing now? Oh, actually, I've been recording our conversation the whole time. I just sent the recording to my husband. Wait a minute. What are you doing? Is there a problem? This is a big problem. You did something without telling me. Who do you think I am? I am Karen Walker. So what? As I calmly spoke, my mother-in-law's expression began to stiffen. I mercilessly continued speaking, as if to vent all of my pent-up resentment. There's no way I could tolerate someone who judges people based on their academic background. It's true that I only have a middle school education, but that doesn't mean I haven't struggled. I worked hard for my family, and I've lived my life with all my might. I won't stand for you denying my life like that. Daisy, please calm down. The neighbors can hear you. Despite the situation, my mother-in-law was still only thinking about herself. I continued to berate her in a loud voice that could be heard throughout the neighborhood. Are you saying that being rich makes you great? Or that graduating from college makes you superior? That's absolutely not true. I might only have a middle school education, but I am happy to be married to Nathan. What do you think Nathan will feel about your true nature? You're going to end up being hated by your beloved son. It's too bad. I shoved my phone screen in front of my mother-in-law's face. There was a message from my husband on the phone screen that said, "I'm cutting tie with you, Mom." My mother-in-law turned pale and collapsed to her knees. I left without helping her. Later, my husband called his mother and clearly told her about the estrangement. I could hear my mother-in-law crying and screaming on the phone so loud that even I could hear her. This incident caused my mother-in-law to become emotionally unstable, and it began to affect her work. She threw harsh words at her staff and hurled abuse at her co-stars, causing a lot of problems. As a result, she gradually lost her work and recently stopped appearing in the media altogether. I have some mixed feelings, but I don't regret what happened. It was my mother-in-law's own doing. On the other hand, my husband suggested that we move to an apartment near his company. He probably wanted to get away from his mother as well. We live peaceful days now. To my delight, we recently welcomed a new life into our family. When this child brings a marriage partner someday, I don't want to reject them, no matter who they are. I want to be a parent who respects their children's feelings, rather than unilaterally deciding things.
My husband, a mama's boy, always criticizes my cooking. Together, we were invited to his family's home. After my mother-in-law crowded the table with dishes, she announced, "I've prepared plenty of my specialty dishes, so please eat a lot." "Yes, thank you, Mom. They all look really delicious." As we sat down and toasted, my husband began eating with great enthusiasm. So good. this is delicious, and this one is exquisite too." In high spirits, he kept eating more and more. Then he looked at me and said, "Seriously, Mom's cooking is amazing, right? You should learn from her more." Huh? Even this fried sesame chicken is crispier than what you make, and the chicken stew has a deeper flavor. And the potato salad, that satisfying texture, 100 times better than yours. Yeah. Mom, despite being a career woman, is so good at cooking. You'll never be able to satisfy me if you can't keep up. Make sure to learn from Mom properly. My husband said so with a confident look. Then my mother-in-law quietly told me, "I'm glad you're satisfied, but that..." Afterward, my husband ended up miserably sobbing. My name is Holly Miller, and I'm a 30-year-old working wife. After graduating from university, I landed a job at a major cosmetic company, fulfilling my long-time dream. I worked in marketing and led a busy life within the company. Focused solely on work, I reached my late 20s without having a boyfriend. Concerned about this, one day a friend offered to introduce me to someone. "Nice to meet you. I'm Julian." "Wow, you're beautiful. I'm feeling nervous." At that moment, I met Julian, who would later become my husband. He was a white-collar employee at a major corporation. My initial impression of him was that he was someone masculine who could take charge. Apparently, Julian played football in college, so he had a sturdy physique. Even during our courtship, he took the lead and made things enjoyable. I gradually found myself drawn to him. After 2 years of dating, Julian proposed to me. "Holly, there's no one else for me but you. Please marry me." "Thank you, Julian. I gladly accept." And so we became engaged. I then took Julian to say hello to my parents, and they happily agreed to the marriage. After some time, we finally went to visit Julian's family. Julian's father had passed away a few years earlier due to illness. As Julian didn't have any siblings, his mother lived alone in the family home. "Welcome, I've been waiting." My welcoming mother-in-law had a short haircut and an approachable demeanor. "Mom, this is Holly. I want to marry her." When Julian introduced me, his mother nodded deeply. "I respect what you guys have decided. Holly, he's a modest son, but please take care of him." I nodded too, and then we chatted for a while. His mother spoke to me. "Holly, you work for S Cosmetics, right?" "Yes, that's correct. I work in the marketing department, and I'm busy every day, mainly dealing with advertisements." "Actually, our magazine also handles advertisements for S Cosmetics. If marketing is your job, we might work together someday." "Huh? Your magazine?" When I asked, Julian proudly chimed in. "Mom is the editor-in-chief of a famous cooking magazine." When I heard the name of the magazine, I was surprised, as it was a popular cooking magazine I had read before. I thought she was stylish and exuded an unusual aura, but I never imagined my mother-in-law was such a successful career woman. "It's nothing special, but I've worked hard since I was young." "That's amazing. I admire you." As I expressed my admiration sincerely, my mother-in-law felt embarrassed. Then Julian intervened again. "Mom juggled a busy job while also handling household chores and raising children. Pretty amazing, right?" "Yes, truly. I want to be like your mom." When I told her this, my mother-in-law gave me a serious look. "Will you continue working after marriage, Holly?" "Yes, I love my current job and find it fulfilling." "That's wonderful. It's an era where women shine in their careers." "Julian, since you'll both be working, you and Holly have to help each other in life, okay?" Julian nodded, saying, "Of course." and I exchanged contact information with my mother-in-law. I was happy that my mother-in-law was a respectful woman. And on the way home, I said this to Julian. "Your mom is amazing. I admire her." "Right, Holly, strive to be like her." After such a conversation, we headed home. Afterward, Julian and I registered our marriage. We had a wedding ceremony and decided to rent an apartment together. Before moving in together, we had discussed the division of household chores. I was in charge of cooking, Julian of laundry. Cleaning was alternated during weekdays and done together thoroughly on weekends. We were both satisfied with these agreements. At first, Julian enthusiastically did the household chores. However, after 2 months of living together, he began to slack off on them. "Hey Julian, you haven't finished today's laundry yet." "I did everything up to starting the washing machine. Can't you finish the rest, Holly? I'm really sleepy." Ugh. Thus, I ended up doing Julian's tasks too. But there was another problem. Julian often complained about my cooking. One day, "I'm home. What's for dinner tonight?" "I made fried sesame chicken today. Please wash your hands and come to the table." After washing his hands and sitting down, Julian immediately frowned. "Julian, what's wrong?" "Something is off. The smell..." "Huh?" "Your fried sesame chicken doesn't smell the same as Mom's at all. Did you make it properly?" "I made it properly without cutting corners." Then Julian picked up the fried sesame chicken with his fork and put it in his mouth. "Yeah, it's definitely different." "Huh. The crispy texture of the batter isn't right. And isn't the sauce too bland?" Is that so?" "Well, I can still eat it." "Hey, Holly, why didn't you learn cooking from Mom?" While eating in front of him, his words hurt me. After 6 months of marriage, Julian started slacking off on household chores even more. Even on weekends, when I was doing laundry and cleaning, he wouldn't get up. "Julian, we promised to clean together on weekends." Saying this to Julian, he groaned sleepily. "Come on, Holly, just do everything." "Huh?" Even though Mom was busy, she managed to do all the housework and childcare perfectly, you know? "If you want to be like my mom, you'd better start working hard now, Holly. You're still far from being like Mom." I almost shouted, "This mama's boy!" but I held back with great effort. Julian brings up his superwoman-like mother-in-law in various situations. When he mentions my mother-in-law, I can't help but feel like I fall short of her. I suppress my thoughts and just focus on the chores at hand. Then one day, a decisive incident occurred. On this particular day, I was making a meal that Julian wanted to eat. "Stewed chicken today. Let's see what you've got." Those words irked me from the beginning, but for now I watched as Julian took a bite of the stewed chicken. His face contorted in disgust. "Ugh, awful." "Huh?" This stewed chicken was meticulously prepared while following a recipe from a cooking magazine. I had tasted it several times, and it was delicious. "This is nothing like Mom's stewed chicken. Honestly, you never learn." There he goes again, mentioning Mom. Frustrated, I couldn't help but respond. All right. Sorry for not being your mom." Then, to my surprise, Julian glared at me and tossed the stewed chicken into the trash. "Hey, you can't just throw that away. What are you doing?" I protested, and Julian's temper flared. "It's inedible, so I tossed it. Yet, you had the nerve to act rebellious? Hopefully, this teaches you a lesson, so you can cook as well as Mom." I had reached my limit. Throwing away a dish I had worked so hard on. It's just despicable. And to constantly compare me to his mother and put me down. I can't take it anymore. Alone at the dining table after Julian left, I found myself crying. And then, a few days later, I visited my mother-in-law's house alone. "Holly, what's wrong all of a sudden? Where's Julian today?" she asked with a concerned expression, and I broached the subject with my mother-in-law. "Please teach me how to cook." "Huh? Your cooking the other day was delicious, Holly. I don't need to teach you anything." Confused, I explained Julian's recent behavior to my mother-in-law. When I told her about him throwing away the stewed chicken, my mother-in-law's expression changed suddenly. "What the heck? Did that kid really do that?" "Yeah, unfortunately. So, Mom, I want you to teach me how to cook. And also," I informed my mother-in-law of something I learned the previous day. She grinned and said this. "I understand, Holly. We'll have to straighten him out." "Huh? You don't need to learn from me. Listen carefully." Thus, my mother-in-law shared a plan with me. I happily agreed to it. 2 weeks later. "Hey, Julian, isn't it your birthday next week?" "Oh yeah, that's right. I'll be turning 33. I told a happy Julian the following. "So, Julian, how about having your birthday party at Mom's house?" "Huh? Your mom said she'd cook too. What do you think?" "Sounds good. I want to taste Mom's cooking again. She is thoughtful, huh?" While Julian was on cloud 9, I sent a message to invite my mother-in-law with a wry smile. The response came back. "Understood. Let's surprise him." On Julian's birthday, we bought a cake and headed to my mother-in-law's house. "Welcome. I've been waiting." "Happy birthday, Julian." "Thanks, Mom. Thanks for giving birth to me." As we entered the living room, the table was packed with dishes. Julian's favorites: fried sesame chicken, chicken stew, potato salad. I prepared plenty of my specialty dishes, so eat to your heart's content. "Yes, thanks, Mom. They all look really delicious." As we sat down and made a toast, Julian started eating voraciously. Delicious. This is great. And this one's fantastic too." In high spirit, he continued to eat. Then he looked at me and said this. "Seriously, Mom's cooking is amazing, isn't it? You should learn more from her." "Oh?" "This fried sesame chicken is crispier than yours, and the chicken stew has a deeper flavor. Even the potato salad, you know, the texture? It's 100 times better than what you made." "I see." "Mom is a career woman, yet she's so good at cooking. You'll never be able to satisfy me if you can't keep up. Make sure you learn from Mom properly," Julian said proudly. Then my mother-in-law quietly said this. "I'm glad you're satisfied. Actually, Holly made all of these." "Huh?" "By the way, the potato salad is from the supermarket." "What? What are you talking about, Mom? This was made by Holly? And this is from the supermarket?" "Yes, she came over here last night. Holly made everything and kept them in the fridge. I just reheated them. All I did was buy the potato salad. The ones from the nearby supermarket are delicious, you know." "Come to think of it, Holly came home late yesterday. But Mom, you said I've prepared plenty of my specialty dishes." "I meant to say my proud daughter-in-law's dishes." "Huh?" Silence fell over the dining table, and it was broken by my mother-in-law. "Julian, I heard everything from Holly, you know. It seems you've been belittling her cooking and bringing me into it, huh?" Mom. "I like cooking too, you know, but because I'm busy, I often rely on supermarket food and ready-made meals. Like this potato salad. You seemed to think I made everything, But that's a big misunderstanding.
Is that so?
With a serious expression, my mother-in-law continued. You were always taught to be grateful for the food served to you, right?
Yes.
Holly's food must have been very good, as you said yourself. So why did you criticize Holly's cooking or even throw it away? Then Julian began speaking reluctantly.
A senior colleague of mine said, the beginning of a marriage is the most important. If you throw away her cooking, your wife will become more docile and you'll have a better home life.
I was utterly disgusted by those words. It seemed my mother-in-law felt the same way, as she sighed heavily, restraining her anger.
It's truly helpless.
To think you would hurt Holly, who is the most important? Holly, what do you think? When my mother-in-law asked me, I answered clearly. His words deeply hurt me every time. Maybe it's difficult for us to stay married. I'm considering divorce. As I took out the divorce papers from my bag, Julian turned pale.
What? Divorce? I don't want that.
But what you did qualifies as grounds for divorce, you know. When my mother-in-law said this sharply, Julian slumped, his large frame shrinking.
I'm sorry, Holly. I feel like I've woken up. I truly think I was acting insane. Idolizing Mom and throwing away your delicious cooking. I was such an idiot.
And? Julian began to cry, feeling pathetic.
Please, give me another chance. I'll do anything.
So, are you going to stop dumping all the household chores on me?
I'll do them, of course I will. It sounds ridiculous, but it took being faced with divorce to realize how important you are to me, Holly. I'm sorry for hurting you. Please spare me from divorce.
Seeing Julian, a grown man, crying and repenting, I glanced at my mother-in-law and then turned to him. Finally, you get it, huh? Can I trust you?
Holly, will you forgive me?
Yes. Both your mother and I heard your words loud and clear. If you can't keep them, you're in trouble next time.
Thank you, Holly, really, thank you.
As Julian relaxed with a relieved expression, I said to him, Also, you need to learn how to cook.
Huh? Me? Cooking?
Even I might get sick and be unable to cook or end up in a hospital.
Huh? Holly, are you okay? Are you sick?
Turning pale, Julian shook my shoulders, and I smiled at him. From now on, do your best for the family, Daddy.
Huh?
Yes, the day before I went to consult my mother-in-law, I knew something. It was the fact that I was pregnant.
Huh? Really? Holly, you're pregnant? I'm going to be a dad. Yes.
Julian started shedding tears of joy this time. My mother-in-law and I smiled and watched over him. After that, Julian seemed to change and started doing household chores willingly. He seemed to realize the difficulty of cooking after learning from my mother-in-law and me, and apparently felt ashamed of his previous attitude. He sincerely apologized, so I forgave him with a smile.
Holly, are you feeling okay? Today, I prepared some great dishes for the pregnant lady. Give them a try.
To think I could hear such words from Julian. I once again felt grateful to my mother-in-law who made this possible. Time passed and I gave birth. The baby girl born was adorable, and Julian was already doting on her. My mother-in-law was genuinely delighted by the birth of her grandchild and always looked out for me. I now adore her like my own mother. I want to continue supporting and helping my beloved family, creating a home filled with smiles.